All right, today we are working on lesson 8.4, fraction and whole number division. So the essential question that we are working on is, how can you divide fractions by solving a related multiplication sentence? All right, so two things to keep in mind before you begin is that if you divide a fraction by a whole number greater than 1, the quotient, so the answer to the division problem, will be less than the fraction. And if you divide by a whole number, if you divide a whole number by a fraction that is less than 1, the quotient will be greater than that whole number. Okay? So let's take a look at the example. We are on page 353. 3 friends share a 1/4 pound block of fudge equally. What fraction of a pound of fudge does each friend get? Okay, so the problem that we are solving is 1/4 divided by 3. Okay, because they share only 1/4 of the pound, not the whole pound. So the first step is to divide the rectangle, which they've given us over here, that represents a whole pound of fudge. So this whole rectangle is 1 pound. Divide the rectangle into fourths, which they have already done for us. So here is 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. And then divide each fourth into 3 equal parts. So working it with just this 1/4 that the friends shared, we're now going to divide this into thirds. Okay, so there's the 1/4 pound of fudge that the 3 friends shared, and then we divided just this 1/4 that they're sharing into their 3 equal parts. So it says the rectangle is now divided. If we keep going, so I'm going to divide this 4th into thirds, this 4th into thirds, and this 4th into thirds. So the whole rectangle, not just that 4th, is divided into how many equal parts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so if we divide each 4th into 3 equal parts, we now have 12 parts. So then it says when you divide 1/4 into 3 equal parts, you are finding 1 of 3 equal parts, or we are now finding 1/3, because that's what this part is, of 1/4. Okay, and as we learned before, remember of means multiply. And then it says shade 1/3 of 1/4. So this green bar now represents 1/3 of the 1/4 of the pound. Okay, so the shaded part is what of the whole rectangle. Okay, a minute ago, remember we said there were 12 parts. So if I've now shaded 1 in, I have shaded in 1/12 of the whole rectangle. Okay, so make sure you're watching the wording. And then it says complete the number sentence. So if we had 1/4 divided by 3, it's the same as saying 1/3 times 1/4. Okay, and 1/3 times 1/4, 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so each friend gets 1/12 of the pound of fudge. Okay, and if we go back to what I told you guys before, that if we divide a fraction by a whole number greater than 1, 3 is greater than 1, the quotient, the answer, is going to be less than the fraction. And the fraction was 1/4, and 1/12 is smaller than 1/4. as we see here, this is 1/4, this is 1/12, so it is smaller. Okay, so let's take a look at the second example. It says Brad has 9 pounds of ground turkey to make turkey burgers for a picnic. How many 1/3 pound burgers can he make? So here's his 9 pounds, and he's dividing each one into thirds. Okay, so it says draw 9 rectangles to represent. They've already done that. Draw each rectangle into thirds. So I'm going to split each of these into thirds. Okay, so when you divide the 9 rectangles, remember we started with 9, into thirds, you are finding the number of thirds in 9 rectangles, or you're finding 9 groups of 3, right? Because we divided each of these into 3. So if we counted them all up, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 thirds, right? Because each one of these represents a third, and there are 27 of them. Then it says complete the number sentence. So we had our 9 rectangles. We divided each one into thirds, which is the same as saying 9 times 3. And 9 times 3 is 27. There's our 27 thirds. So Brad can make 27 1/3 turkey burgers, right? Because each one of these will become a burger. All right, so that's how you're going to be doing today's lesson. So again, you want to be keeping in mind those 2 little key things. So example 1 showed us that if you divide a fraction by a whole number that's greater than 1, your quotient is going to be less than the original fraction. And example 2 showed us if you divide a whole number by a fraction less than 1, the quotient will be greater. Okay, because here we're dividing by a fraction less than 1, and here we were dividing by a number greater than 1.